Folks, we are. Wow, that went quickly. I'm always going to miss the mark on all these live streams. Holy crap. I am Rach Tenkar. This is Gamers Health. Sitting next to me, stage right. Yes, StreamYard mixes this up for me.
I'm not even going to venture a guess to say.
It's okay.
Hello, it's Rachel.
It's my lovely wife, Rachel. But joining us, not for the first time on this channel, but for the first time on Gamers Health. This show, this live stream, is none other than Alice Peng. Alice, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, well, everyone. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, and you and Rach have been. I don't know what to call it.
I don't either, but it's okay. Whatever it is, we've been, doing exercises together. Alice has been a real extreme strength to me in, working on the changes that I'm trying to make in my life, in my health. Just very inspirational to me. Whenever I think of, I just don't feel like it, or I don't want to, think about.
What would Alice say?
What would Alice say? What would Alice say? WWED.
I think I accidentally became your unofficial trainer. Is what happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as Rachel's husband and as her life partner throughout all these journeys, I have not only seen the amazing improvement in Rachel's health, but her general happiness and attitude. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm gonna say you are inspirational for Rach, but that's inspirational for me too. And I think we always stress that, these journeys in life, you shouldn't have to take them alone. They aren't meant to be taken alone. Yeah. You can find people to walk with you on parts of this journey that are going to surprise the hell out of you, and maybe not be who you expected. But trust me, the journey is much easier and much more rewarding when you have somebody with you. I'm going to probably for most of this live stream, I'm going to almost guarantee you two will be doing most of the talking. This is going to be a time when Tenkar takes a step back and handles the chat. So they don't have to make fun of me for being so late on all the comments.
Okay.
So it looks like we have a few comments there.
Yes. Off topic from John Miller. After reading Alice's adventure, Moon Daughter's Fate, it occurs to me that Frog Guy Games should hire her to write a whole supplement on Chinese historical fantasy games.
Oh dear. There has actually been joking about that, but that's a big project, and I'm not taking on any big projects right now. But I am still doing a little bit of work for Frog God. I just recently turned something in, so I'm not disappearing completely. But I will definitely write more and create more stuff. I'm glad you really liked it, John. I really, really am. It's one of the things that bothers me the most about writing for public is I'm always really, really scared of what people will think. And so I'd rather just hide my work. So this is, so I get very nervous about that, especially with the fact that I know that the way that I write is not the popular way that people like to read these days, because I like to write with Matt, for example, when he was editing my mod, said, "Alice, we need to dumb this down, all your language down." And I'm like, oh dear. And I that's common for me, is that I don't like to write in that fashion. You don't
I'm glad that people like the mod. I don't want to say the lowest common denominator, but listen, I started out. My first D&D book to read was The Dungeon Master's Guide for 1st edition. Mm-hmm. All right. And I probably read that when I was 12. And if you can read that at the age of 12 and start to comprehend it, then there's nothing that's going to set you back when you're reading anything else later. But gamers now are coming into gaming reading 5e, which is the rules certainly are more in depth and intricate, but they are presented in a way that is much less in depth and intricate and doesn't challenge you. And I personally think readers should be challenged once in a while.
Yes.
But
Stan Lee, Stan Lee used to say that he liked his writers adding really obscure words because it would make the kids go out and learn the new word.
Yeah.
And so it was a big thing for Stan Lee was that we will challenge you with language.
Right.
And when a couple years ago, this was almost like a decade ago, I guess, I was writing a novel, and it was actually before the superhero craze of novels had started, and I was actually starting to write a superhero novel. And I researched if I do actually finish this, what it would take to get published. And I read about modern novels and how editors and publishers and producers and such would only take novels that didn't deviate off of the standard common 200 words that Americans use on a daily basis, more than, I think it was 2% in the book. So if you used more than 2% of the common 200 words, then they were probably going to reject you. And then
Really?
if you go out and read some of these lower, like a lot of the fantasy or a lot of the big publisher novels of certain types versus the niche author that got themselves going, you'll see that there's a big language difference. And so I wasn't really thinking about self-publishing or anything. And so I didn't think about that. But these days, self-publishing and all that stuff has become a lot more open and
viable.
Maybe I'll go back to writing that novel at some point. I finished up to chapter 8.
So
I have like 24 people who've read it. So
Oh, that's nice. And let's be honest, that's probably 24 more than many people who have written stuff don't ever submit it, let alone show it to people to read, because that opens yourself up to critique and criticism, and in human nature is to avoid a lot of that stuff.
Which is one reason I'm very nervous about writing for public in general. I have a small group of people I trust to read my stuff, and but I'm really, really glad that. So thank you again, John. I definitely want to try and build up my skin, my metaphoric skin, and put out more.
And that's cool. Like that John had this idea that somebody had floated before. So it's like something that's kind of in the air now. Like maybe not going to happen now, but a little down, somewhat down the road, possibly.
Don't shrink away from us. Come on, you're not allowed.
So I think we're here to talk about gamer health.
Yeah, we are.
You are, but you're gonna
You are right.
But remember though,
our taskmaster.
Like the gamer's health is more than just physical. It's mental, it's
mental as well,
it's emotional. So all this stuff comes into play. I mean, your vocabulary is part of your mental health, right? The more vocabulary you have, the better it is for you to be able to communicate more. Maybe the better you understand others. It might not make you better understood by others if your vocabulary is beyond the common denominator. Rob, Warhammer actually uses a large vocabulary. I learned a Thane was a small holy place, and a Novembrance was an armed guard. But that's kind of like what we learned from reading things like the DMG.
Some of the older Warhammer stuff definitely had better vocabulary. Then again, some of the older D&D stuff had larger vocabulary. Some of the, and like I said, Stan Lee was a big proponent of let's add weird words so kids learn them. And so it's really funny to know that. So yeah.
Rob, I like a Chinese mythology fantasy game, particularly if there were no monks and no ninjas were involved. Okay, that's. Part of those, because those are Western tropes of what Eastern mythology is. So,
well, ninjas were not a part of my module. There were cultists, but they were designed in a version of cultists that are actually true to the historical fantasy of it. So,
John says, just put it out there. Worst case scenario, use the feedback to improve. Easy for me to say, though.
But yes, mental health is also very important. In fact, I think actually mental health is viewed in a sense when it comes to gamer health on a level that a lot of people don't realize they're doing to themselves. Self-sabotage. Rachel and I were talking about that this morning, that we deal with a lot of people that have certain things that set them back. And because of that, they tell themselves and tell the world that they're unable to do anything to improve their health. And that's untrue. I'm not saying that you're going to go out and you're going to suddenly become an athlete. I have been working at improving myself for 15 years, consistently exercising, doing my physical therapy every single freaking day, doing everything. And I will never be an athlete, but my range of motion is better than some people who are completely able to do a lot of things, but don't. I know some people that are very physically fit and very healthy, but I have better range of motion than them because I work at it. So, certain ranges of motion. So I think that self-sabotage is one of the biggest things that we need to work on is, oh, well, I've got this thing holding me back. I can't work out. I can't exercise. I can't improve. And things as simple as cars, controlled articular rotation, that takes just a couple minutes a day. And Eric, you're already saying you're already getting pain relief after doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it from my sleep that there were a couple of weeks where I had to sleep in a modified side position on my left side, which is where I have the stenosis, and normally that is never a good side.
Mm-hmm.
But sleeping on my right side would always give me this pinching feeling just on the edge of that hitting your elbow or hitting your knee, that funny bone feeling. It was just enough to be on the edge of, do I really feel that? Well, I feel it enough that it's distracting, that it's annoying, and it's keeping me from sleeping. So now I can find positions on that right side that don't have it.
Maybe we need to look into like some of the positions that are the most helpful.
There are positions for that will allow you to sleep on your side, and I can get you some literature on that later on. But yes, one of them is actually to modify by putting a pillow between your legs, between your knees. That can help straighten you and help basically align. What it is the rhomboid pain comes from certain joints getting caught and basically trying to put it in layman terms without using a bunch of technical terms. Basically, you end up jamming your spine and rib cage against the muscles and nerves there and pinches. And so the back of the rib cage will basically lock in.
Right.
And that's a very common thing for people as they go through, and especially if they're a side sleeper, the side that they sleep on the most will eventually develop that if they don't have ways to fix it. So one of the ways is, like we said, cars. Controlled articular rotation, which is something physical therapists use, and it can increase your range of motion. It reduces pain over time, stuff like that. So,
I am a believer. I'm not one that is going to be. I've been using the pillow between the legs for a while now, and
we were doing that more for the sciatica to have the hips be more in alignment, but we didn't know that there was the added benefit for the rhomboid.
Yeah,
because your body basically, without that pillow, your entire upper body also snakes and twists, and so when it twists, your shoulder basically becomes like this, and when your shoulder becomes like this and it's squeezed and compressed without that realignment, then that area will catch in the rhomboid. So
interesting.
Yeah, it can help, but I'm glad that it's getting better. So I think that it's important to just get up and start moving.
Yep.
And there's a lot of ways to start moving. There's anything from kin stretch, like cars. There's and then you can do walking, which we were going to talk about the watch thing about the walking.
Yes.
And I have a few friends who they don't think they can even go get walking. And I'm very hesitant to talk about my personal background of why physical therapy has been a big part of my life for 15 years. But I will tell people that I was on the verge of when I got up and started moving, I moved basically against medical orders, and all I could do was cross the room at 15 steps before I had respiratory failure.
Wow.
So so if you have any energy, 3 steps is 3 steps. You do 3 steps today, fantastic. Do 4 steps tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do 5 steps the next day. Just saying I don't have the energy, I don't even want to try, then you're never going to improve. If all you can do is 3 steps today, that's 3 steps. Tomorrow, you do 3 steps again or do 4 steps. Then you keep going and you build up, and it's amazing. So
it certainly, listen, even when I had my congestive heart failure, when I could not get up and down the stairs, going up a flight of stairs would take me 10 to 15 minutes. And even walking across the house would exhaust me. I would get myself positioned, and I would try to get in, walking in place and trying to get my feet higher and higher as I did it. And can I do it for 5 minutes? Can I do it for 6 minutes? It wasn't the same. Walking in place is not the same movement nor the same energy level.
You mean when you were first released?
No. When you were working, I would be in front of the TV set, and I would time myself and try to get a little bit further each day. And there were days in the midst of my congestive heart failure where I did have the ability to get up. I got up those stairs and only having to stop twice. And it was a short stop. It's like, I can only imagine how much worse it would have been if I hadn't made sure that every day I did a minimal amount of exercise, because I was like, I need to see myself doing something. I can't just see myself sitting in this chair doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So
the human body is made to move, and that's the truth of it, is that when you are sedentary, when you're in bed all the time, which some of us have spent lifetimes of, a lot of bed rest for various reasons, there's damage to the body. And at the same time, exercising every day does come in a very wide range, because, for example, if you're going to be lifting weights and bodybuilding, your muscles don't build during work. Your muscles require recovery time and fuel in order to actually build, because you're cannibalizing your body and breaking it down, and you need fuel to change. You also need rest to change. I use the word change because a lot of people seem to think that it's about toning, or it's about, I build muscle to look a certain way, etc.,
right.
Stuff like that. There's a lot of misconceptions, because when you talk about people who are bodybuilders, for example, there's a wide range of people who, of different goals. There's a very wide range of different goals and a wide range of results by some people's standards, including a very good friend of mine who is a bodybuilder. He tells me I need to stop saying I'm not a bodybuilder because I put in the same time and dedication, as well as the amount of hypertrophy, as well as other types of as well as other types of strength work, to try and basically offset my weaknesses. We'll go with weaknesses, and my body trying to sabotage me and trying to say you can't do it. So, but yes, I do lift weights a lot. And just because you're a woman that lifts weights doesn't mean that you're going to end up big, bulky, and look like a dude. I also work on a lot of mobility work. I try to very much work on modified mobility work where I can. And that's something that I highly recommend for, I saw somebody was mentioning, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name. Hi, Kim. He was mentioning good advice for sedentary gamers, and something that I would highly recommend for people who are just trying to get up and trying to get moving, and you do live a very sedentary lifestyle. I bet that everybody who wakes up, you have 5 minutes. And for those, when you first wake up, take those 5 minutes and do some full body stretches. And you can find all sorts of 5-minute routines, 6-minute routines, and just do that. That in itself will do a lot for your body. And over time, you will see increased mobility, increased flexibility, and it will actually help you gain more energy. There's actually a great study from, I forget the gentleman's name, but it's a well-known neurologist. He was doing a scientific podcast I was listening to a few weeks ago, and he had a guest who talked about the science of sleeping smarter. One of the things that has been proven over and over again in neurological studies, as well as endocrine and hormonal studies, is that when you wake up, the first thing you do when you wake up, if you put in exercise, doesn't matter if your main workout is later in the day, but as soon as you wake up, you create a cortisol reset where you spike your cortisol. And then for the rest of the day, your cortisol will continue to drop. And they also say not to work out within 4 hours of sleep, because if your main workout is 4 hours before you sleep, your cortisol level is going to spike and you're not going to sleep very well. So if you get up and you just do some exercise, that will start regulating your body's systems better.
Okay.
Interesting. I always know that if I get exercise in, even if it's 15 minutes of stretches and shadow boxing and different other stuff, and I love the boxing moves because I can do some boxing, the undercuts and the roundhouses that will move muscles and open up joints that I would not normally do in a regular exercise, and maybe push it beyond what I would normally do because I'm doing motions that are not, in my mind, exercise. But I find that if I do it for 10, 15 minutes and I finish it, I feel, I don't say pumped up, but I feel more energized than I did before I started doing it. It gets the blood flowing. It wakes me up.
Yeah.
It was good today because I wanted to, when you started your working out, your I don't know, what do you want to call it? Your afternoon.
The TRX?
Yeah, the TRX
session.
The TRX
The
session.
TRX session.
We do a strength session because we do TRX and we do other things as well. We also go ahead.
Yeah, it was. I could listen in, and part of me, because I can tell you, my stomach has been right the last 2 days. I was like, I could just take a nap, and then I heard you too, and I was like, you know what? Let me get up and do about 15, 20 minutes of exercise, get my blood flowing, and then there was no need for a nap. We'll just let me do some work on the computer. Let me do a little writing, because it gets not just your body feeling good, gets your mind feeling.
Oh, right.
better.
So the energy of us doing stuff.
Yeah, it was inspirational.
Made you, and it stirred you to
stirred me
to action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was,
I have to say too, like when I do yoga on Sunday mornings, I do like a Zoom class with someone I used to see in the studio, and a group that used to go to a studio before the pandemic, and so when I do that before breakfast because he's still asleep and he does breakfast. So, I'll like go in there and do like the hour and 15 of the yoga, and it's a gentle yoga, so it's a slower flow, and it's just a nice thing to kind of get started on a Sunday, and see old friends, and move the body a little bit. It builds enough heat, by the middle of it that I do sweat a little bit, not crazy like some more vigorous flows, but or with Alice. But it does start things in a different way. There is a different feeling when you exercise when you first get up.
Yes. And so, even if it's 5 minutes, that just get a little step going.
Yeah.
Now, I promised you I would talk to your audience about some of the stuff you've been saying about your smartwatches.
The watches, yeah.
Yes. So first off, smartwatches are fantastic for a lot of things. However, there are some rules that you do want to think about. One, smartwatches do not tell you the calories you burn. Do not think that it tells you the calories you burn. I'm sorry, they don't. They simply do not. The reason, so there are hundreds and hundreds of factors for the reason why. For women especially, it's especially incorrect, especially if you are someone who is fit, someone who exercises constantly, stuff like that. It becomes less and less accurate, just like a woman's BMI, body mass index, becomes less and less accurate. I've shown Rachel pictures of women that are very fit, very lean, but according to their body mass index, they would be obese.
I was like, I'd give my right arm to be that obese.
Yeah. For me, after some things that happened and the cycle of the medications and such, I had gained some weight. I lost that weight. And what's funny is I lost weight all the way down to my optimal BMI. I'm 5'2". So my optimal weight is around 125 to 127. Okay, cool. I go into the doctor's office. I'm 125, I'm 127. Fantastic, I'm optimal BMI. And then I started really getting into weight training and resistance training and strength training and whatever you want to call it, because there are different ways to do it. I do 3 types every week. I do free weights. I do bodybuilder level resistance bands, not the tube lightweight ones, but I do the heavier duty resistance bands. I also do TRX. All 3 train strength on different planes and different motions in different ways. So I do all 3 every week. So I started getting smaller. Well, that's weird. Okay, well, I'm getting smaller. That's awesome. However, I was gaining weight. So I'm now 145, and I'm fine saying that. Actually, no, sorry, I'm 142. I'm 142 now. So I am, according to my BMI, overweight. But I actually wear a size 4 to a size 6. Whereas when I was 125, I was wearing a size 8 to a size 10.
Huh.
I'm like, So I went and talked to my doctor about that. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about that. BMI's garbage. I'm like, cool.
Well,
and this is very common for a lot of people who do lean up and get more muscle mass and are losing body fat and such like that. I do carry some extra body fat on me because, and that's intentional, because I don't eat the macros that are required, macros being macronutrients, the macronutrient ratios required for me to lean down and I stay on maintenance because I am, because of what I burn. Mm-hmm. But I can't eat that amount of protein without hurting my autoimmune issues. So I eat lower level proteins, and that's okay. I take stuff to, I eat what I can, and I do carry a little extra body fat on me. And I do what I can to offset that with building as much lean muscle as I can as well. So
it's interesting because in the time that you and Rach, and I'm just going to say this as a husband and a friend of yours, I'm so glad I got the 2 of you together to connect, because I reap all the benefits, and I get to look at my wife. And after you all were doing this for maybe about a month and a half, I'm like, Rach, you look different. I'm like, I'm telling you, you look.
And he said that from behind me.
Yeah. And she's like, what do you mean I look different? I go, Rach, you look.
Tell me about that.
There's less of you, and that's why I tell her, because she has her weigh-in every week. Yeah. Saturday's her weigh-in.
Oh yeah.
And I'm always the one.
So this way I don't have to obsess over it every day.
Just a fart failure. I'm weighing myself 6 days out of 7.
Yeah.
But I told Rach, I go, don't obsess over the weeks where your weight stays the same or goes up a pound, because I can guarantee you, you're not putting on fat.
Getting smaller.
I'm guaranteeing you, you're building muscle. I go, this so right now you're gonna reach a point, because it's not just diet. She's working out. She's working out a lot. God, she should be more inspirational for me to follow up on it, but I'm a lazy fuck, and I will say that. But I do a lot more exercising than I used to. So that to me is, again, I'm reaping some benefits here.
And when you're ready, you will do.
But you are driven, and you are inspirational, Rach. And
well, it's always funny when you say that. I'm like, okay, that's not far different from what Alice would say.
but it's true, and that's why I am just so happy to see the 2 of you doing your sessions together, whether it's TRX or whether it's yoga, because Rach always finishes it after, the TRX, after she has her 3 or 4 minutes of getting her water and letting her body relax. She's like, all right, so what are we doing now? She's all
Where we
Pumped up.
going? Yeah.
She's excited.
Like I said to you earlier, I was like, it's we're building heat, but it's not like a heat that's tiring me. It's a heat that's energetic and happy. You know?
And tomorrow you're gonna feel it in some body parts a little bit, and
Of course.
you know, you will.
Go
But
easy on those.
it's good pain. It's the good pain, not the chronic bad pain that we have to suffer sometimes. Some of us, you know,
it's the pain that tells you that something good is happening. You know, like it's not that arthritic pain where it hurts to move more pervasively, like where like you can, if you can isolate it to a muscle, it's like, oh, I know relief is gonna come, and I can just roll the muscle. I got this thing at 5 Below. It's a little roller that you can just roll your muscles over to like help with the recovery, and I guess it's a myofascial release.
Trying to drain out some of that lactic acid.
Little log. Yeah.
Have you been having watermelon because it's prime watermelon season? I
haven't as much. I had it in maybe a month ago or something when I was making the sorbets. I still do occasionally, but not occasionally.
Make
a little more than occasionally. At least once a week, I have a sorbet from the creamy, like from fresh fruit, or like frozen fruit.
Right, but unsweetened.
Yes. Oh, yes. Always unsweetened. And you know, it's nice because I'll put like a little. What is that? Coconut water inside, and whiz it up in the creamy, and it ends up coming out really nice.
Coconut water is the clear stuff. The coconut milk would be the white stuff. Okay, cool. So you're putting in coconut water.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Okay. I know I've talked to you about L-citrulline. I don't know.
That's the compound in watermelon that
and
replenishes.
Yes. I embrace my DOMS. I embrace my delayed onset muscle soreness. However, I do make the joke that during the summer, I feel almost no DOMS, which actually my DOMS get much more diminished because I eat a frick ton of watermelon. And eating a frick ton of watermelon, L-citrulline is a blood vessel dilator, and so it helps the body flush out the lactic acid and such like that. So it can lower delayed onset muscle soreness. So it's a great tool. In fact, L-citrulline, derived L-citrulline is added to a lot of protein powders that and supplements that bodybuilders eat and drink and such because it is very powerful and useful. And so some people are like, oh, just have protein powder and you won't feel DOMS. And that's not true because it's only certain protein powders do get L-citrulline added.
Yeah.
Yes. And but protein by itself does not. So I'm what I don't do any supplements and stuff like that. I don't take any powders or anything like that. The only thing I take is ashwagandha from because of certain medical
get that here, except in
ashwagandha.
Yeah, we can get it in tablets, but we can't. Can you get it fresh anywhere?
You can get powder, but I don't get the caplets or anything like that. I get powder and I mix it every morning and I mix it every night for the ashwagandha. But yes, for the turmeric, you can definitely get the fresh turmeric root, and you should definitely go for that.
Yeah.
Now, if you start feeling, good. But yeah, for the watch thing, the calorie burn on this is completely inaccurate. It's very, very, very wide on how on the gambit of people. I know 5 foot tall people that because they do lift a lot, they're very ripped, they're very lean, they can eat 4,000 calories, and this watch will tell them they've only burned 1,200 or 1,600 in a certain period of time, and they're like, oh shoot, I can't eat, when their body actually needs a lot more fuel.
Right.
Or people who are sedentary and 6'3", for example, Brandon, who people will associate with me for good reason. Brandon is 6'3", and as anybody who has seen us on camera together next to each other, when he walks up next to me, the top of my head goes to his chest about here. And there has been a number of laugh break like people break out laughing when they see, because I look like an absolute hobbit next to him. I'm 5'2".
Aw.
I eat more than he does in a day. My maintenance calories are about 2,200 if I am on my standard rotation. But as we know, as I work with you, Rachel, I have a lot of weeks where I'm suddenly on medical stop, don't do anything.
Yeah.
So, but if I'm on my standard rotation, my maintenance calories are about 2,200, which is like, oh my gosh, that's huge for a 5-foot girl. But it's not really. Not if you have enough muscle that you have to maintain.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are people who, can be 6'4" and their maintenance calories, while their standard would be like 2,000 or 2,200 for 6'4". If they have certain metabolic things, then they might actually be only on a 1,600, or actually, I guess the lowest guy I know is a 1,780 maintenance at 6'4". So it's a very, very, very wide range, and you really have to understand. And some of that learning where your maintenance is actually just trial and error. I've been tracking my food for 13 years every day, and I don't even count calories anymore, because I can just kind of guesstimate just based off of stuff, and I just keep an eye on it, because when I was tracking every single microcalorie by weighing everything, it was driving me absolutely neurally nuts. It was breaking me, and I was developing psychological issues, because I just suddenly was like wanting to starve myself because the numbers look too big, stuff like that. So I stopped doing that. I keep track. I log my food, what's making things worse, what's making things better. I have a general idea of what my calorie intake is based off of, I just do quick math.
Yeah.
And I know what my portion sizes look like. After so many years, you get used to it. Every so often, I do a check-in, a reset, what I call reset, which is I spend 3 days where I do actually micromanage my calorie intake, because that way I manage my creep up. And then I can just check, well, am I still at this maintenance calorie? And I did watch myself go from, needing to increase my calories for maintenance over time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like I said, for you, Rachel, as you gain more muscle, we're going to want to increase your maintenance calorie, your deficit, actually, because you're on a small deficit trying to lose weight. But we want to increase your calorie intake, because if you start going into too deep of deficit, you're not going to gain that muscle. You're not going to continue that recall.
Oh, because the body will think
you're in starvation mode.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Starvation mode is kind of another misnomer. So I don't use that word.
Yeah.
I do not use, there are a few words that I don't use, because it teaches people bad information and bad habits. One, toning. No, your body doesn't tone. Sorry, that does not work in the actual language of kinesthesiology, period. Okay, your body builds muscle or builds fat or loses muscle. There are certain mechanics to it, but when you're working out, you don't simply tone. That's not a magic word. Another one is starvation mode, because it is a big, big misnomer.
Okay.
And there are a few other words I don't use. But what your body does do is, when you are lacking, when you go into too far of deficit, a lot of people will be like, oh, if you're in deficit, you can't recomp. That's actually not true at all. There's a lot of science showing that you can do what is called recomp. Recomp is recomposition. It's where your body is recomping fat and muscle ratios, so that your muscle's going up while your fat's going down. A lot of people will tell you that you can only do that when on maintenance or surplus. That's only true if you're only a certain body fat percentage. If you are have a lot of weight to lose, you can recomp while in deficit, but you have to keep the deficit small, because if you have the deficit too large, what your body will do, body goes for the easiest fuel first. If your body is too hungry, if you're not fueled enough, the body will simply go for the easiest fuel first. Easiest fuel and the most dense fuel is going to be your muscle. So it will eat your muscle first. Certain medications like,
yes. Okay.
Yeah. So like certain medications when I'm in the hospital, for example, 2 Februaries ago, I know a lot of people know about the fact that I was in the hospital for a few days 2 Februaries ago for a coconut exposure, coconut family exposure. And when they pumped that much epinephrine into me over the course of just a few days in the hospital, I lost 9 pounds of pure muscle. Pure muscle, just lost 9 pounds of pure muscle, I like absolutely atrophied out because my body was just so hyped up on epinephrine that my body decided to just completely cannibalize months of freaking work. I was not happy camper after that for a while.
Yeah, that's not the weight loss you want. No.
Yeah.
No, that's not the weight loss I want. I got home and I had lost 13 pounds or something like that, and it was ridiculous. But and I was on prednisone, so I knew that, and I knew that prednisone meant I was gaining fat, and I lost so much muscle and like lifting what my standard lifting was. I'm like, okay, well, I just had to drop 20 pounds off that, and 6 pounds off that, and 5 pounds off that. It was just yeah, not fun. So that's I want you to make certain, and so soon I want you to start increasing your calorie intake because you are building enough.
Compensation issue and
to continue maintaining your
calories
growth
to make it possible for that to happen.
Yes, exactly. And also like I already talked to you about this, but don't be down on yourself about your diet. Like, eating healthy is important. I eat fairly healthy.
Not that I'm telling you.
I've listened. I eat pretty healthy. I eat a primarily whole food plant-based diet. Once again, keeps my autoimmunes under control. But I do cheat. And I don't like to say the word cheat, actually. We indulge once in a while. So I go, so the whole 80, 20, 90, 90, 10. For us, we find it funny that people say we go 90, 10 lifestyle because look at how often you eat. And if you're like a 90, 10 lifestyle, you're actually eating a lot more junky food than you think you are to get that 90%. But yeah, we eat primarily pretty healthy. We do indulge. We do have some freezer foods. We do have some, quote, junkier foods. And every so often I do have a 3,000 calorie day. That's okay because your body can't go in deficit. Like you don't want to stay in deficit constantly. Your body will not do well staying in constant deficit.
Right.
So I know that you were telling me that
times like when we go away or something like to the Poconos and we have like a little bit more
have a day of what you don't want to do is say I'm just going to have a 10,000 calorie day of full of junk. But like your standard maintenance calories 1,800, great. 2,500 on a day every 2 or 3 weeks. That's actually not that's not going to be terrible for you. For to go to like 2,500 for a day. Your maintenance, as we calculated, is about 2,200. So all of a sudden you go to maintenance for a day. It's not a big deal. You go a little over. And it actually helps your body recover, because your body needs breaks from deficit. Yeah. So, yeah. But what is good about this watch is watching your heart rate, learning your heart rate zones, and learning how your body reacts. With a lot of people that are just starting to get into working out and have medical problems, are sedentary, the list goes on and on. But there are a lot of reasons why watching and understanding your heart rate zones can be beneficial, especially if you understand your body. For example, if you have heart issues, if you have asthma, if you have COPD, if you have certain circulatory issues, certain medical issues regarding your circulation, a lot of that you can pre-signal yourself based on the fact that, like, I know when an asthma attack is going to be coming for me before I actually physically know it, because if I feel this buzz me at certain heart rate zones, I know I need to back off, because if I keep going at that heart rate zone, I will have an asthma attack at a certain point.
Interesting.
So that's a very useful tool for that, is watching your heart rate, knowing, because when you start going into your anabolic and your peak zones, your body starts straining, breathing becomes harder. And that does change the way your blood flows. That changes your heart, your lungs, everything needs to just pump so hard. And for people who have issues, that can signal going, okay, it is time to slow down, back off, let that come down, take a couple deep breaths and recover and go back into an anabolic state. So,
and smartwatches, when I go to see my heart failure specialist, he's always like, hey, do you have your data on your smartwatch, just so you can see the patterns? He's not looking for individual stuff.
Mine never looks at that.
Well,
I'm not with the podcast.
This is Dr. Shah.
Oh,
yeah, my heart failure specialist.
yeah, he would
And
be
he,
totally
he
into
just,
the tech.
he just wants to see the general. And I would tell him, I go, well, doc, normally my resting, my awake resting, sleeping resting is usually low 60s. My awake resting is upper 70s, 80. And if I'm walking and it's a normal walk, 90s. If it's a fast-paced walk uphill, could be 100, 110 max. You go, exercise bike, I could hit like 120. I goes 100. I get above like 120. I get nervous. He's like, "You're medicated."
You don't need to get nervous at 120.
And he goes. He said, he goes, "Listen, with the medication you're on," he goes, "you could probably try to bike up a 45-degree angle." He goes, "You wouldn't hit 140. If you go beyond 140, you might want to tone it back."
Yeah.
He goes, but other than that, he goes, I wouldn't be concerned. It's a good workout for your heart. You're fine. But I didn't know that. I just knew my normal resting. I'm coming from sitting on my ass at 78, and now I'm doing a bike. I'm at 120. It's like, oh wait, maybe this is too much. So that was good to know.
Right.
Now, something I did learn when the three of us, when you had me going through the exercises that first time, when I didn't realize the issues I had with my right shoulder were as bad as they were, when I hit that funny bone feeling that gave me the nausea and the sweats, these watches have one time where they're going to be, there's an inaccuracy generally of about, I did a little research on this. The Apple Watch is within about 2%, which is awesome. It's a great guide until you break out into sweats. So when you break out into sweats, because it is a light emitting diode, that's why it had my pulse going from anywhere from 42 to 140, because it wasn't getting, once I dried myself off and put the watch back on, I went, oh, I'm in the 80s. Okay. So
there's some other things about that, which I did want to say. I had a little bit of a tongue twister. I meant going from anaerobic to aerobic. Aerobic being with oxygen, anaerobic being, because I tongue-tied myself and I mixed up, I think I said some sort of hybrid word that I didn't even exist.
Okay.
But yes, but exactly, like I said, the watch has some inaccuracies. Also, before wearing a fitness watch, understand that if you do have heart conditions, if you do have heart conditions, if you do have carpal tunnel, if you do have nerve damage, those are issues that you do want to make sure you talk to your doctor about what brand of fitness watch to get. You should not get, for example, Fitbit literally has on their website warning you, if you have heart conditions or nerve damage, do not wear a Fitbit.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It is right on their website in their warning panel. Do not wear it unless you talk to a doctor first. So make sure you talk to your doctors about the brand that you're using, because it does use, the way that the sensors are can affect issues. So that's something to consider. But like and exactly, it can be accurate. Now, one thing I will recommend is always wear, you notice that when I wear my fitness watch, I'm not wearing it on my wrist.
Right.
I'm wearing it up. The reason being that it isn't, when you're exercising or for a lot of activities, actually, you want it about 3 fingers up for it to actually get accurate count. And that will actually help you maintain more accuracy. Even when you do sweat, it'll stay on a little bit better, and it will, as long as you can get it.
It makes sense.
It will be more accurate.
Of pulling when you're down by your wrist, which, as you can see, I am. When
I just fixed
it, it'll pull that sweat underneath it, which is going.
Yes, you're not going. Yep, and so you're going to have more accurate readings. And so I keep it 3 fingers up at all times. So but there's some great information on here. While your calories are not accurate, and also depending on who you are, what you're doing, step counter on this is also very inaccurate. So don't be like, I've got like 10,000 steps, yay! 10,000 steps. 10,000 steps does not equal 10,000 steps in any sort of physical activity. If I am, like Eric was saying, walking in front of my TV, or like when I'm doing podcasts, sometimes I have to get my blood flowing again, and I have to stand up, and you'll see me walking like this if I'm doing 2 or 3 hour podcasts. Yeah. And this is something I physically have to do, and I don't want to have to say we're going to pause, but I want to pay attention. Right. That step while it gets my blood flowing, that does not work that keeps me probably burning like 4 calories a minute. Okay. Versus if you're walking uphill, if you're walking on an incline, if you're walking at 3 miles an hour, forward or backwards, a lot of people just think that walking is only one forward motion. The truth is that we need to actually walk on multiple planes of motion. We need to walk forward, backwards, and lateral. It does a lot of different things for our body, including balance, motor control. It works different muscles. If you're walking backwards, you'll find suddenly it's a lot harder. Like Ian, I saw that you said that you walk on the treadmill while watching this podcast. You'll find that if you try to walk backwards on the treadmill, you're going to have to slow it down a lot. Like first timers, you'll find like, if you're normally going 3 miles an hour, you might find 1 mile an hour going backwards might be like, what the heck am I doing? It works very different muscles. It works your hamstrings a lot more, for example. Yeah. And it's something that you'll want to make sure you stretch out. Also, lateral walking is very important. And that's really good for balance and good for a lot of different things. So in Asia, and actually in multiple countries, it's really funny. In multiple countries, I learned that there are parks that have designated zones for people just to take backwards walks for their heart and physical health. So there are zones for backwards walking on this section only.
Well,
so that way people don't just go bumping into each other.
The guy in the park, there was a fella, very athletic looking fella. He was going backwards. He was like almost running backwards.
Yeah,
the good dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll feel very different muscles moving, and also like the speed in which you're walking, or like different if you're incorporating your arms, or if you're incorporating weights and such like that they all do very different things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's fun. I enjoy walking backwards on a regular basis and lateral walking because those are very important. Those help do a lot of things, but make sure you stretch your hamstrings out after you do a backwards walk for a significant amount of time.
Okay.
You definitely need to stretch out your hammies. Otherwise, they're going to be crying.
Give it a shot. Now, one thing I've noticed with the watches is I put with Rach and I walk, and I find that with the Apple Watch, if I put it on the outdoor walk setting, I've got a 50-50 chance of only having like 10% of my walk counting because my heart is highly medicated. So I usually put it on the open workout setting and go from that. But when I do put it on a walk setting, and Rach and I walk the exact same amount, she'll hit a mile probably about.
I'll hit it before you because my legs are shorter.
I don't know why, but you're getting a mile in, and I'll be at 0.95 or 0.96 when you're hitting a mile. So,
if you're shorter than Eric, based on stride length, he should hit the mile before you.
But I don't.
You're right.
But I don't. I never do. You always see that.
Yeah. So this is what I mean. There are great aspects to the watch, but saying, "Oh, my watch told me I did this today. Oh, my watch did that today." Right. It's very bad habit, and it can actually send you into mental spirals and self-sabotage because there are people that have overworked. Overtraining is a thing. Overtraining your body can really do damage, and but at the same time we say you got to get up and move. Yes, you got to get up and move, but there's levels of training in different fashions. For example, and for you, Eric, this is going to require modification. What you would want to do is on your app there should be a setting for custom heart rates, heart rate zones. And you should talk to your doctor about what your expected heart rate zones should be. And therefore you can set that. And therefore when you are active, and you are hitting your target zone, you will get credit appropriately.
Okay.
But just about every app, I have it
in the watch. We'll have to research it.
It might be. It might actually be in the health on the phone. I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be in the app. For me, I do use a Fitbit. I do have nerve damage. My nerve damage is not in an area that the Fitbit would be a problem. So I've been told it's fine.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Cool.
Right.
But like I said, talk to your doctor before you end up wearing one because there can be complications. And
something I
so,
like that you said too was like maybe not having the watch be the primary factor in the decisions that you make regarding what your needs are at a given time
yeah,
in terms of
and
intake and exercise.
yes, exactly. 1 second, I'm sorry. Okay. But yes, and so there, watching what your heart rate zones are, knowing that you have been active X amount of time, that can be very useful. Also, getting the tracker on your sleep, that can be very useful. Those are things that knowing that you got enough sleep. A lot of people apparently don't know this. You sleep on a 90-minute cycle. I was talking about this to a good friend of mine earlier today. People sleep in 90-minute cycles. And so he was complaining about conflicting news articles about how one article that he read said, oh, if you are someone who naps, your brain power is better, you have longevity, da, da, da. And then another study, and then another article said, oh, if you're a day napper, your lifespan's shorter, da, 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 da. And he said the contradictory stuff is ridiculous. And I said, this is why I read actual medical journal articles. I understand what the variables are. I understand what they're studying. And one of the things is that for day nappers that they're talking about, how many people go, okay, I'm going to go and take an hour nap. 60-minute nap, wake me up in an hour, or they set their watch and alarm to wake them up in an hour. And if they actually are sleeping in an hour, if they just conk out right away and sleep that hour, at that hour mark, they are probably in their deep sleep state.
Yeah.
So those days when you wake up and you feel like you've been run over by a tractor? Well, that's because when you are in your deep sleep state, that's when your body does the most regenerating. So your body does all the factoring in of sorting in the long-term memory. Your body sorts, our bodies actually do more cell turnover and more regeneration while we're sleeping, and mostly in that deep sleep state than when we're awake. When we're asleep, our skin regenerates, our does cell turnover. We wake up a whole different human being, actually, is the truth of it, cellularly speaking. But and so basically, when you're heading into that deep sleep state, it's like booting up a computer and then telling it to run a system diagnostic, or telling it to, reformat something, or telling it to run a major process. And then if you wake up while you're in that deep sleep state, you are interrupting that and basically causing a blue screen. So when you're causing and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. And some people, when they wake up in that tractor mode and that run over by a tractor, it takes them like over a day to recover. People who take naps and don't calculate for that cycle, they are the people that will wear their bodies down because their cellular regeneration and such like that, they're doing damage to themselves, and over time they are damaging themselves. On the other hand, for people who are only taking like those 20-minute power naps where they don't actually let their bodies hit that deep sleep state, they can actually wake up rejuvenated. Or if people who sleep that 90-minute cycle naturally, if they take an hour and a half nap and they just naturally wake up 90 minutes. I'm the 90-minuter. I've never been able to take short naps, but if I take a nap, I'm going to be taking either a 90-minute or a 3-hour nap, just naturally waking up after 90 minutes or naturally waking up after 3 hours. And that is good for you. So that's the difference between the two contradictory studies when I was explaining that to him.
Very interesting.
The timetable, the 20 minutes versus the 90.
Yeah, 20 minutes or 90 are good. If you're doing that middle, between that, where you're entering or in that deep sleep state, somewhere in between, you can cause yourself long-term wear and tear doing it repeatedly. And there are a lot of people who are like, oh, just wake me up in an hour. And they go and they conk out, and somewhere around an hour and 5, an hour and 10, they're waking up and they are just like, why am I feeling so much worse than when I went to nap? So just, it's weird stuff. You finding that sweet spot. But sleep is very important, and your watch can help you with that. But also people who read their watches and they go, oh my gosh, I was only in deep sleep for like 35 minutes. Yeah, that's fine. That's
what it's
seriously
supposed to
fine.
be.
You have different phases of your sleep and different phases of deep sleep. Your deepest sleep, you are only going to get a few minutes. Believe it or not, people have this impression that I'm going to be in deep sleep for like 3 hours of my night, 4 hours of my night. No, not at all. So don't freak out when you see that from the data on your watch.
Right, that's the best sleep. So of course it's going to be the most fleeting.
Well, yeah.
So do not use this as a guide of, oh my gosh, I did that many calories. That is just so it sets you up for failure. So I'm glad I'm breaking you of that. I listened to that a couple weeks ago because I don't usually catch you guys live, and I'm like, I need to fix this. I need to fix this now.
Well, see, and I was never a napper until I started. My napping started when I was put in charge of a very political and stressful unit. So I would come home from work. Rach wouldn't be home for another couple of hours, and I would normally set my sleep cycle for about 2 hours. So I'd want to be up for at least 20 minutes before Rach got home, and that was fine. Then I worked midnights, which meant that I would sleep for, and it's weird when I'm talking about this, usually my sleep was 3 to 4.5 hours. That's the right, and I'm realizing it now. I was hitting these cycles, but it was weird going to bed at 8 o'clock. So then I, in the morning, and I would get up. I would go shop with my mother or go down to the pub for lunch, and I come back and I would take my second sleep cycle, which was generally 2 to 4 hours. Usually it's closer to
some time to drift off, some time to wake up, but about 90-minute cycles.
Yeah,
multiplied.
and I'm seeing that those cycles were built into it. And honestly, I was surprised. I worked with people who worked overnights, midnights consistently, and they always used to take their meal and go sleep in their car, sleep in the lunchroom. I tried sleeping twice. Not only could I not fall asleep, but the one time I fell asleep for 10 minutes, I felt so much worse. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to work straight through. And I adjusted within about a week and a half, and my sleeping was fine. The only time it screwed up was when I was off for the weekend, and then I had to flip back to Rachel's sleep cycle, which was an interesting thing to put it, because that wasn't healthy. I think you got to swap your.
No, it's not. Yeah. Brandon worked swing shift for a while, and it was tearing his body apart. But and Wizard Tower Games is very right. Sleep is very critical. Now, the other thing about smartwatches, depending on the brand, more and more brands now have a smart wake feature, which is something I definitely use if I'm needing an alarm to wake up. What it is it tries to, the accuracy can range sometimes, but it's pretty good for most part. What it tries to do is make sure that it wakes you up when you are at your lightest part of your cycle. Okay. And so therefore the smart wake will give you like a window, like my Fitbit. I say I want to wake up at 9:15. Anywhere between 8:45 and 9:15 is when it will buzz me and wake me up, because it will try and wake me up at the lightest sleep point. The other thing is if you're good at figuring out how you're sleeping, calculate based off of 90-minute cycles on when you want your wake up time to be, and that'll help you a lot.
Matt Jackson has an interesting question. I take melatonin to help me sleep. Any thoughts on using it? My job is quite stressful, and without it, I find myself waking up thinking about work at 1 a.m. I know my experience with melatonin. When I first started taking it, I used to get the most bizarre, intense dreams. Now that I've been taking it consistently, I find that I don't have many bizarre-ass dreams, and my sleep is generally more restful. Less of me getting up in the middle of the night. My watch shows less, 2-hour spaces in the middle of the night where I'm just lying in bed, not able to sleep. So for me, I find that it works, but that's just me. Yes, Alice?
So for many sleep medications, melatonin is certainly one of those more natural things, and it's one of the safer things for many reasons. You just have to make sure you're very careful about dosing. The recommendation is just be very microdosing about it. I know people that go and take like 20, 30, 40 milligrams. Don't go doing that. Take just enough that you need to help you relax and get off to sleep. For some people, it doesn't work at all. For me, when I'm having periods where I can't sleep, no sleep medication works on me. I've tried, my doctor prescribed me a bunch of different things, and I would build up an immunity within 48 hours. For some people, that's just the way it is.
Right.
But yeah, like just watch what you're taking, because even melatonin can be a bit addictive. And so try and keep it to the microdosing. And if it is more a psychological thing than a physical thing for you on the sleeping, what you might want to do is start tapering yourself off the melatonin and start trying some alternative methods. There are apps now that can help you, like called Breathe or Calm or stuff like that, that can help you cleanse your mind and really help you get into the right mindset to sleep. Those are going to be much safer for you in the long term. And what I do mean by taper is you're going to have a much better time getting off of it and not be so reliant on it if you slowly reduce the dosage versus if you just go, okay, well, let me try it without it completely for a while. But there are other ways to try and help your psychological mind state that will actually help you better in the long term, because you're working your neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is something Wizard Tower Games was talking about how sleep's very important. Yeah, for creativity. Neuroplasticity is something we rely on as gamers. Neuroplasticity is how our brain pathways wire and rewire themselves. It used to be like 50 years ago, they thought that our brains would develop and stop learning and stop growing when we are in our early 20s.
Yeah.
Well, then they continued studying neurology, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person who had a stroke, they just rebuilt their entire half brain, and there are MRI studies. I love studying the brain, and it's watching some of these documentaries on rewiring brains, but it's amazing that creativity, exposure to new experiences, exercise. And one of the things we do, Rachel, you and I, is that, okay, well, I got you used to this, Rachel. Now let me make you do this. And you're like,
change it up. And we're
let me change it
putting
up.
Our bodies in
Rachel,
some different way.
Exactly, Rachel. I built up enough strength in you. Let's teach you how to do a loaded. Let's teach you how to do a. I think I taught you how to do a loaded beast today.
Yeah, the loaded beast.
So you're like, what am I doing? This is so much hard to hold. But
was it the one we said it's hard to hold, but it feels good?
No, that was something different. Yeah, that was something different.
I wasn't listening in, but I just happened to listen in to that part.
No, actually, she did say that. She's like, this is hard, but yeah,
maybe I did it that time. I don't know.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things.
You're welcome, Matt.
It was like, it's hard, but it feels good. Oh yeah. But I mean, yeah, the loaded beast, that was different. I was like, so I'm supposed to be coming into a squat, and it wasn't quite a squat. It was hovering the knees over the floor.
Yeah. But neuroplasticity has shown that, building new pathways in the brain, it can do a lot to help us in a wide variety of ways. And so new experiences like eating new foods, learning new skills, role playing is great because you're always expanding to new experiences through role playing. That's the hope, provided, you get enough exposure and you start learning new things. And it starts to build neural pathways, exercise, food, role playing. But we really, as gamers, really rely on neuroplasticity because that's where creativity comes from. The more able we are to really generate and those new pathways and connect the dots and such like that. Like for some of us who have played a lot of game systems, you pick up a new game system and somebody's going to teach you game system. You're like, okay, so I roll this dice, add that, and done. Okay, cool. You start picking it up and know, because this is part of the fact that you've got these solidified neural pathways that just always know which way to go. Now, if you stop using neural pathways for a certain amount of time, they start to deteriorate. And this is actually something they're learning about eyesight. Old age eyes, that's actually less about the eyes for a lot of people than it is about our brains. So there are ways to actually reverse that. Now they're studying like red light, for example, when you first wake up in the morning, being exposed to only red light for a certain amount of time can reverse that because of what it does to stimulate your brain. The other thing is that there are now programs that certain scientists and certain people in certain neuroplasticity fields use to increase the field of vision, because we lose peripheral vision as we age for the same reason, not because of our eyes getting worse, but because our brains are not using it as much. Yeah, the neural connection. And so you can actually reverse that with work, just like we're reversing, pain and mobility issues for you guys through work. We can work our brains, and that's super interesting and important. And I'm like, wow. So like whenever a new neurological article comes up, I'm like sitting there reading, going, shut up, I don't want to do anything. Oh wait, I just find it fascinating.
This is everything right now.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Oh, Ian, that's one of the reasons why I got way serious into playing RPGs a few months ago. I'm trying to rehabilitate my brain from years of alcohol addiction. The brain fog can be a drag.
Well, that's awesome, Ian, and that's really awesome to hear. There are also physical exercises you can do besides doing treadmills. Strength training and mobility training are really, really important. One of the best neuroplasticity training exercises in the world, according to neuroscientists, as far as what we know right now, is learning to juggle. If you learned, that's actually supposed to be one of the best ways to build neuroplasticity, is to learn to juggle and improve juggling. But building physical coordination and building speed in physical coordination through mobility work, is actually really, really good, because it also, increases circulation in addition to working neuroplasticity. It works it on multiple levels. It works it on a physical chemical level as well. So, yeah. No, it's I do crazy neuroplasticity exercises. I move my hands and do crazy neuroplasticity exercises randomly all the time.
Sometimes on Instagram. There was this one.
Like that, yeah. Facing you with that is harder than if I'm just doing it by myself. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just lucky I can do the
Spock one you can do.
Yeah.
Other ones, draw a triangle with one hand, draw a square with the other simultaneously.
Oh, that is...
yeah, that's what I'm not becoming a circle.
Yeah, draw that. Another one, so the oldest one in the book is, doing that with the...
Right.
Yeah. So, but, and then, and so a lot of people have mastered that one. But another one that I was doing is you knock. So you knock on one hand and pat on the other. You knock on one hand, circle the other, and then you switch. So you switch it. Sorry, looking at myself on this, it's really hard because I'm reversed. But yeah,
it's interesting because your hands want to.
They want to do the same thing.
Yes, you want to do the same thing. Yeah. I'm usually faster when I'm not seeing myself there. So if I just close my eyes, I'll do the switch faster. But there are a lot of different things you can do that are simple. And like exercising for when you're at work. If people say that, I'm standing, more and more offices have standing desks these days, at home and at work. And people are like, well, I'm standing at my desk all day. When I'm standing here with you guys, I've been standing on one leg half the time.
Yes.
I just switch randomly and just shift and go to my other leg. And I'm just standing on one leg and I'm doing, raise my leg to the side, and I'm just doing balance work and such like that. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of ways to just get your body engaged and do balance and neuroplasticity work, mentally and physically improving. There's a lot of little things. So hope I've been helpful. I've been trying to also keep my terminology succinct and easier because I don't want to start using a bunch of words people have to keep Googling all day long.
Listen, and I'm going to be honest. Our I won't say listener base, but our viewership, I would like to think is a little bit above and beyond.
Oh yeah.
Not just the average gamer, because they're interested in more than just latest gaming gossip or the latest talk on theories on gaming. Mm-hmm. They want to hear about things that are relevant to their lives and the lives of the people they care about.
Yeah.
And it's also very much about being part of the community. So I think that the people that are watching, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry that you're stupid. But I think that...
Oh, no.
But I think the vast majority of the people that are watching this, or haven't just stumbled into this by mistake, are of those that are interested in learning this stuff.
Yes.
And just like we spoke about earlier, that reading the Dungeon Master's Guide or Marvel Comics, when they were trying to make sure you had words that were not common to expand your vocabulary. If there's something here where somebody's like, it sounds interesting, I'm not 100% sure, they've got Google, they will look it up.
Yeah, we have people that want to know. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, climbing that mountain. You're doing a great job, Alice. You're giving us a lot of truly important info. Climbing that mountain is somebody who's gone through a hell of a life challenge too, and he's come a long way. And he's with us pretty much every Saturday. And this is what community is about, right? I mean, that's
I try. While I have a small group of friends that know intimately well what my health issues are, in general, online and in the gaming community, I try not to show people. I give very little away on what all my issues are, and I try. But at the same time, I've been told, well, if you tell people, you're going to be an inspiration, and people will be like, oh, there's, if she can do this, I can. At the same time, it's like I grew up being the sick girl, and the things the bullying that I went through in schools, like kids would make jokes about how they would do certain things to trigger my allergies so that an ambulance would be called so they'd get out of a test, stuff like that. I had bullies pour milk on me and caused me 3 days of hospitalization due to anaphylactic shock. Growing up the sick kid, it's not something I want to be known as the sick gamer. And that's something that, as you can see, I try and basically present myself in a way that I'm trying to enable people without going.
You're the strong gamer. You're the.
I am a gamer. I mean, as Eric can attest to,
I certainly.
Give me a system.
But here's the thing too, and here I'm going to just make a wide statement on this one. It's not just you, Alice, but it's Rach. It's climbing that mountain. It's Ian. It's Matt, who nearly broke his back falling off a ladder. People, and they didn't even realize that his arm was broken until months later, and they had to re-break it. God, man, I'm sorry if I'm giving away your secrets, but we do your ladder jokes anyway. But these are the people that inspire me because, again, everybody. Am I ignoring you? Yes, everybody has, even you, Sadie. Even Sadie.
We've all had our.
She had her moment. She was living on the streets until she walked into our house. Mm-hmm. Everybody's challenges are different.
Yes.
Some are certainly going to be rougher than others, but it doesn't diminish the challenge that you have.
Right. And the resolve and strength that they rise with.
I get inspired by so many people in my life, and it really is. Yes! It's amazing. Yeah, come on. I know. I'm not. There. Is that better?
I really love that you said that, Eric, because for years, people who do hear my story and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you've been through so much. Your life is so hard," and da 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 da. And the thing is to me, I don't actually feel that my stuff is any quote harder because I'm well adjusted by comparison to most people. I'm not easily triggered by everything that I've gone through. I have made peace. I told Rachel a secret of mine this morning, and she was a bit shocked, what I think is the right word, that I was compassionate for the person who, for the other party, even though I was the victim of it. I was compassionate and felt sorry for that person. And that's not something a lot of people can do when they are victimized. Yeah. But I felt sorry for that person and felt compassion. So when people tell me, "Oh my gosh, you're such an inspiration. You've been through so much." I look at the fact that I have friends who've gone through one trigger and got PTSD, one scenario that caused them PTSD, and it broke them for life. Right. And whereas I might have gone through quite a bit, but it hasn't broken me. So to me, I don't feel anybody's life is any easier than anybody else's. Everyone's just different.
Right. We all have different constitution, mentally and emotionally.
Right.
But at the same time, I have this bias. I have a silly bias because of what my health has gone through. When people tell me certain types of health problems, and then they're like, because of this minor health problem, I can't do anything. And I just kind of want to slap them. I'm sorry, but I do, because I'm like, no, you have a minor health problem. We can overcome this. All you have to do is do this and this. And that's a lot of work. That hurts at first. Well, yes, it's going to hurt at first, but if you keep, you gotta do it. It sucks. And thank you, Matt. Matt, something else I was also thinking about is there's a lot of studies on, well, actually, you know what? If Tenkar can hook me up with you, because I want to talk about your magnesium intake, find out about your magnesium intake, because there's some really interesting studies on that. Also, make sure that you are try certain neuroplasticity exercises to help you come off of melatonin. But I'm wondering if you are getting enough magnesium, because that's a big thing in our modern world. Most people, and judging by your profile picture, I'm guessing you're a sizable guy, and most people your size these days in American culture, science is showing that you're getting like 40 to 50% of the magnesium you need in a day. And magnesium is so freaking important. For those that don't know, magnesium is moderates a lot of functions in our body, including our mood. There was a study, there was a great study, I lost the publication to it in there. I curse about that every day, because there was a fantastic study in Europe over a decade ago where they took a couple hundred people on antidepressants and anxiety meds and such like that. And they started monitoring their magnesium levels and started supplementing them magnesium. And they were able to reduce the amount of anxiety and depression meds. Yeah, exactly, Kim. Anxiety meds as well as depression medications, and even in some cases completely remove the need for any anxiety or depression meds in a number of their patients. And even actually, they had some success with even bipolar patients, which was really, they had no idea that would happen. And it's remarkable. But magnesium, it takes a few weeks to kick into our bodies, but it is super valuable. And at the same time, you don't want to overtake, because a lot of nutrients, just because your doctor says you're deficient doesn't mean you should just go and just start chomping down on pills of it. You need to make sure that you are taking it at the right doses, because a lot of it is not going to be something you can simply get rid of water soluble. So for example, vitamin C, you can overtake. By comparison, it's harder to OD on because it is water soluble and you'll just pee out the excess, while something like zinc, you can't. Or B12, like a lot of people are deficient in B12, but then I deal with people who then say, oh, my doctor said I'm deficient in B12, so here's 6,000% every day for 3 months. And then they start having medical problems from that. Why? Because B12, we don't actually truncate excess. We actually can hold B12 in our bodies for up to a year. So that is very important. Oh, thank you, Dungeons. Thank you. If your doctor says you're deficient on B12, look at what B12 you're taking and how much B12 you're taking. And maybe you're only taking, you're taking 1,000% in a pill. Well, take it like only once a week or once every 2 weeks, because it will build up in the system and stay in the system for a long time. So different nutrients have different half-lives in the body and different ways of truncating excess.
Interesting.
Zinc, B12, and some other ones are zinc, B12D. Those are actually ones that are very easy to OD on. But at the same time, all of them are nutrients that we as a modern society have a lot of deficiencies in. So then you see people go, oh, my doctor said I was deficient and then I got sick, so don't actually listen to your doctor. These articles that say that, and you're like, no, just because you took too much isn't the doctor's fault. Just because you took too much doesn't mean you didn't need it. People can actually die from hydration. I'm not joking. You can overhydrate. Go look it up if you don't know this. And so I also see, like in fitness groups, it makes me want to slap my head against the wall. And so I love it when like medical professionals come in and do those memes where it's what she said memes, because people are like, oh, who's drinking a gallon? Who's drinking 2 gallons of water? And so I go, first off, stop. Overhydration is much of a problem as dehydration, because if you are hydrating to the point where, and so the best way to tell is actually checking your own color, as is the best way
Right.
for me to say it. But when you're going pee, check the color. If it is slightly lighter than apple juice, you're great because you are well hydrated. You are cleaning out toxins. If it is too dark, you're underhydrating and you're dehydrating, and you might be losing function. If it's coming out like water, you are overhydrating and you are literally stripping your body of vital nutrients. Over time, if you keep overhydrating and drinking that 2 gallons, even though your body doesn't need it, you're going to start causing yourself a lot of medical issues over time, and you're stripping your body of nutrients that it actually needs to hold on to. So it's about learning how to work with your body on that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to take this back a step when you're talking about people hearing about your medical history and going, oh my God. I mean, to some extent, I had 9/11, which led to Hodgkin's, which led to congestive heart failure, which led to a totally blocked artery. And you know what? I am healthier now than I was before I had all these complications, because these complications, I'm not calling them anything beyond complications at this point. These complications focused me on what I need to do to improve my life, my health, to stick around for a lot longer than I probably would have if I didn't have these complications. It put things in focus for me. And I look at other people and some of what they're going through. I'm like, oh my God, how do you survive it? And then I realize people say the same thing about me. And for me, it's just another complication that I got to deal with. I might say something about one's own mindset too. It's a mental health thing. If you see yourself as a victim, remember, I was a cop for 20 years. If you see yourself as a victim, not only are you more likely to become a victim, you're more likely to make yourself a victim.
Yes.
Because it's already in your mindset. If you see yourself as somebody who is not going to be victimized, somebody who is going to be successful, you're already halfway there. So if you're somebody, and Alice is just bringing this up and making me think about it, but if you're somebody who has had complications in your life, health, emotional, mental, whatever it is that's going on with you, the moment you give into it, then nothing anybody says or will do is going to help you.
Right. Once you let it define you.
Yes.
That's the only thing that you are.
Define yourself by your successes and what you can do.
Exactly.
Don't define yourself by what you feel you can't accomplish. Because once you say you can't, you never can. You've already set that limit on yourself.
Right. And these things also like add to our own uniqueness. Like in our own spiritual sort of uniqueness as to who we are and a lot of the things that, we've had to deal with and push through in that way.
Yes, and Matt had a comment. Always wonder about. I see people carrying around 5-gallon bottles of water, like many do.
Yes,
well, it's because we're taught hydrate, because we've got a hydration issue in the U.S. and which is true because people want to drink soda all the time and then they don't want to drink water and they're not eating correctly and so they don't have the electrolytes. These new powders of like concentrated hydration, blah blah blah. They're just electrolytes. Guess what? You can eat electrolytes. Go have some watermelon. Go have some real food, some vegetables and fruit, and you get your electrolytes. You don't need those things. Those things actually cause you to retain water, and they're not great for you, but they do make your body hold on to the little bit of water you do drink. And so people think that that's a miracle when no, because if it's making you hold on to the water that you're drinking, it means you're also not voiding toxins and things that your body does not want, that your body's done using. And that's really bad. So yes, it's I see that too because we have this thing beat into people: hydrate, and you have to drink a minimum of this. Well, yeah, but there's also a maximum for every single person. So
and everything depends upon your health condition. I mean, I was in that weird spot when I initially diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Limited fluid intake, and I'm a person who I've always liked to drink water. Juice off that now because of type 2 diabetes, but I'd rather drink water than eat a steak most times, just how my body is wired. So I had to reduce the fluid intake, and then I was put on Jardiance by my endocrinologist. And it's like, you got to drink enough that your pee is almost clear, because it
Almost, but
almost,
not clear.
not,
No.
yeah, and he didn't say
No.
almost.
Lighter than apple juice. Lighter than apple juice.
Yes.
Is what I tell people.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
because you're trying to push out sugars, and if you're not pushing out the sugars properly, you could get an infection based upon the sugars not being totally pushed out of your body. And I talked to my cardiologist. He was like, you know what, your heart may be technically congestive heart failure, but it doesn't realize it right now. Because, and I will say this, when my doctor told me, you're doing everything I would do with my education.
Yes.
And that I'm a heart failure specialist. So not only a cardiologist, but I specialized in heart failure. And you're doing everything I would do with my knowledge, because, and I did my own research. I'm kind of like you, and that you want to know. I researched my medications and all that stuff. And he goes, and you're doing what needs to get done. He goes, most people, and this is, I'm not saying most people are watching now, believe that, oh, all right, well, I take a couple of pills and my life is going to be better. It just, they're there to assist you, but you have to make the changes in your life that's going to allow this stuff to work.
You can't rely on the medication to do it all.
Yeah. So then after that, he goes, don't worry about the fluid intake. He goes, if there's a problem, you'll know. But he goes, it seems like your heart is fine with that. And he goes, and that's why he recommended your endocrinologist use Jardiance. He goes, it helps protect the heart, which I was like, yeah, I learned that. And I said, and he mentioned the study. He goes, you read the study? I go, no, I read an article that summarized the study, which I found it was very interesting. They were using a medication like Jardiance off-label to treat heart failure. And I mean, when it comes to your health, take those extra steps, educate yourself, and not just educate yourself by, like you were saying, reading some random articles on the internet that contradict
sources are very important.
Go to the source. Do some actual Google.
Check out the research.
Listen.
Be careful when Googling. Like I said, go read the actual medical journal articles.
Get to the sources. I mean, that's what I did. Google can get you to what will suddenly get you to a source. They'll get you to an article.
True. Some people stop way too early.
Yeah.
I actually have a really funny story. Well, a really, I would say, interesting story. I guess not so funny. Regarding what you said about, what most people want. So a number of years ago, after I started coming off of so my primary care doctor for many years was someone that I met as an intensivist when I was near death, to the point where, without getting into details, multiple times I was in the ICU on life support, and the doctor told Brandon that I was done and sent up the grief chaplain to prepare Brandon and such to say goodbye, and friends and family to say goodbye. And so I became very, very close and attached to my primary care physician because he was my intensivist, and he saved my life multiple times, as far as I can see. But working with him for a number of years, Brandon went to started studying for nursing school, and one of the pre-req classes was nutrition. So he came home one day and said, "Alice, we're going vegan." "Well, I'm going vegan. You can follow or not." And so I was studying all the school course material with him. And this is why we are primarily whole food plant-based, primarily. So I went back to my doctor on the next checkup and I said, "We're going whole food plant-based. I hate this idea." I used to be such an omnivore, like put a 16-ounce steak in front of me, girl. Like I could wolf down a 16-ounce steak, girl. And so I was like, yeah, we're going whole food plant-based. I had, because there were some medical conditions due to long-term corticosteroid prescriptions that my body wasn't shaking even after the weight loss. And so I was like, might as well try whole food plant-based. So he snickered. Koski snickered. I'm like, okay, I guess maybe he doesn't believe in this. Well, I'm kind of skeptical too. But we're going to try this, see what happens. So a couple months go by, I go back for another checkup. All my markers improved.
Wow.
And so he asked me, "Are you still on whole food plant-based diet?" I said, "Yep." And he said, and he snickered again. And then he said, "Keep going." I said, "Okay." So a couple checkups go by, a year. We go to a year, and I'm still on whole food plant-based, and my markers are now my cholesterol, my blood glucose, my blood pressure. Everything is that of an athletic 18-year-old.
Wow.
My cholesterol's perfect. My blood glucose perfect. My blood pressure perfect. That of an athlete, a 18-year-old athlete. And he says, "So you're still on whole food plant-based?" I'm like, "Yep." Like I said, after doing it for many years, I now deviate a little bit. I have indulging days, but I'm primarily that way.
Right.
And so I was no longer pre-diabetic or diabetic. I was no longer high cholesterol. My blood pressure at its high was 230 on medication. Steroids do that to you.
Yeah.
Corticosteroids, when they're forced down your throat, they do that to you. So I said, "So I have a question. Why is it that when I told you I was going whole food plant-based a year ago, you snickered, and you snickered for months?" And he said, "Oh, it's not that I don't believe in whole food plant-based. There's enough concrete research on whole food plant-based to fill up my entire office building, but none of my patients want to hear it. They just want a magic pill that'll make them feel better and then just tells me to shut up."
Yeah.
No patients want real work.
Exactly.
And I snickered, not because I didn't believe it would work, but because I know I don't have the willpower to do it. I don't expect any of my patients to have willpower to do it. So you having done it for now over a year, I bow to you. And that was just, and the fact that he said there's enough concrete evidence to fill up his entire office building.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yet not a single patient of his would ever do that because of the sacrifices they would have to make in their opinions on the way that our culture is. Eric, you know that I have a lot of friends like Zach and such that know that I know food, and I still, even though I eat healthy, I cook feasts of food that is has so much flavor. Oh, but see, you don't know how to cook vegetables then, Matt. I have actually, there was this huge gamer that only ever ate meat. He only ever ate meat, and he came over to our house one day, and his wife had told him, "You be polite and at least try everything she makes. At least try it." And he's like, "Okay, fine." And so he had planned to eat when he got home. And are we allowed to swear on this show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I do all the time.
So, okay.
I told back
so
to you.
he came over and he was like, "Okay, I'll just be polite." And so when everybody else was being served, he's like, "Please just serve me one bite of each." And so I served him a bite of each, knowing exactly what was going on. But I was like, I am the Asian host. I make way too much food. I make feasts of very delicious food. He goes through and he eats a bite, and he's closing his eyes, and he's trying not to, freak out kind of thing. He takes the bite, and then he puts it down and goes, "I thought you said you're vegan or some shit." So yeah, we're whole food, we're plant-based. That's healthy there. He's like, "No, this is not." And he starts looking through. He's like, "Okay, seriously, where's the bacon? There's bacon in this. There is bacon in this." I'm like, "No, there isn't." You point out the meat to me. He's like, "Oh, this kind of looks like meat." I'm like, "Actually, that's a type of tofu." He's like, "I just ate tofu?"
Nice.
Yeah, that's dougan, a Chinese 5-spice cured tofu that is dried.
Oh, wow. And somehow he got bacon.
Well, because so what people associate with meat, once again, one of the reasons why I'm a geek on subjects. And so one of the reasons why Zach trusts me on food when he trusts only a very few people on food, I'm one of his trustees, very few trusted people.
You're in that circle of trust.
I'm big on food chemistry. So what most people associate with the flavor in meat isn't actually what they think it is. It's glutamic acid. The highest volumes of glutamic acid don't actually come from meat. So you ever wonder why, when you put MSG into something, it tastes suddenly more meaty? Well, MSG is the salt inside glutamic acid, and it is derived. Oh. Now, people villainize MSG, right. But the truth of science is it's about as villainous as salt or derived sugar. Yeah, sure. Eating a lot of it is bad. Seriously, because eating a lot of derived salt, eating derived sugar, those are bad. Every vegetable, every meat, every food we eat naturally has a level of salt, naturally has a level of sugar.
Yeah.
When we derive it and eat a bunch of it, it's bad for us. So same with glutamic acid, same with the salt in glutamic acid. It is as villainous as salt, but it is not worse than salt, period. That's the plain science of it. But glutamic acid is in things like tomatoes, it's in mushrooms, it's in miso paste, it's in fermented black bean, it's in mushroom soy sauce, it's in a ton of different things. And in fact, per gram, one of the, as far as like our comprehensive diet goes in the US, per gram, there is more glutamic acid in a tomato seed than there is in beef. So if you know how to, and this is why like we cook meat with tomatoes and that meat tastes meatier, right? So if you know how to harness those flavors, suddenly things taste a lot richer and a lot fuller. My mother growing up, my mother used to have this thing about American children don't eat vegetables because all they know how to do is boil the flavor out of it and add cheese to cover that up, and or cream to cover that up. Whereas we Asians know how to put flavor into food, into our vegetables, and that's why Asians eat tons of vegetables and such. But like she had a coworker or like basically a colleague, family friend kind of person who had some kids. They never ate any vegetables ever. And it was such a big deal. They were picky eaters, and they would get into fights with the parents, and it was a mess. But at one point, the kids were over at our house, and they were like, "What smells so good cooking for dinner?" And my mother was expecting to have a bit of a fight with them, but when it comes to Asian culture, it was like in our house, it was going to be you eat what you're served, and you eat it politely, like because. You're served family style, and you have to take a little of everything.
Yeah.
And so if you're a smart kid, like you learn, you eat the ones you don't like the most first, and then you save the ones you like the most for last.
Oh, I learned that.
There you go.
Do it to this day.
And Matt, I do help people cook. I definitely do help people try and adjust diets. I have a few friends that I've made through cooking groups and foodie groups that I help change stuff for them. So if you do want to talk, we can. But and I can see what I can do to help you out. But the kids were like, "Oh, what smells so good?" And it was all a bunch of, like there were little bits of meat in with a bunch of vegetables. The kids ate tons of vegetables that night. And then when they got home, they started asking for Chinese spinach, which is my favorite. Water spinach is one of my favorite vegetables in the world. But they started asking for Chinese spinach. Oh. And the mother looks down and goes, "What? What are you talking about? We want Chinese spinach."
Aww.
The kids were actually asking for spinach. These kids who never would eat anything but chicken fingers and meat were like, "Give me spinach." Water spinach tastes nothing like American spinach, by the way. Really? It does not taste muddy or metallic at all. Oh. It tastes awesome. It tastes crisp. It tastes, it's just a completely different flavor. So water spinach is awesome. Kongxing cai is one of my favorites.
You see, you could, listen, we've learned, one of the things that I learned to do once I got sick and did a lot more cooking for myself was how to get away from salt in cooking as a flavor enhancer. First thing you got to do is you got to get pretty much a full collection of low sodium or salt-free spices, so you can pick and pack and all that stuff. But even things like cauliflower rice, which on its own, if all you do is heat it up and put it on a plate, it doesn't taste like rice. It tastes like cauliflower, and it is crappy.
It tastes meh, and it tastes like, as Matt would say, it tastes like poop.
Right. But now I've learned I'll heat up a pan, put a little oil in it, take out my frozen cauliflower rice, generally 2 bags, oh my God, and heat it up. First, you got to steam it with the cover, then you heat it up, and then you get it to the point where it starts drying out a little bit. Then I throw low sodium soy sauce on. I throw some grilled chicken that's already been cooked, some vegetables in, and I'm having something that all right, maybe it doesn't hit the consistency of a traditional Chinese fried rice, but it doesn't taste like I'm having cauliflower rice, and I want to go back for seconds. And I never said about
Yeah.
cauliflower. Cauliflower, if my mother made it, was boiled in a pot, cut up, handed to you. Brussels sprouts were broiled in a pot, cut up, and handed to you. Brussels sprouts cut in half, baked in an oven with a little spice, maybe a little oil to make them brown a little bit. That is succulent. And this is stuff that I hated for my first 53 years of my life until I learned how to make it better, because I just knew the traditional American way of family
Yes.
cooking, which was quick and easy and boil almost every veggie. And I'll tell you,
Well,
most vegetables work better not boiled.
That's the thing, is that Asian cooking is actually one of the fastest cooking styles in the world, because everything is, you like growing up, we would have dinner on the table and for 6 different dishes in under 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because we had, we had quote food prep methods, which is my mother would come home with whenever groceries were bought. It would get when we got home, the first thing we do is wash everything and portion everything in specific ways. Meat would get cut down into the shoestring julienne style, then bundled into little bundles about this, about like an ounce, and then they would get wrapped up and then get frozen, or they'd get put in the fridge depending on how soon it was going to get used. Vegetables were washed and broken down to a certain degree, but not to the degree where they would start dying, because if you cut certain vegetables up, it'll just die. But cut up to a certain degree, washed and prepped to a certain degree. And then all you have to do is put it into, pack it into specific compartments of where you want it. And so like as a kid, when I wasn't even 10 years old when I was cooking and baking and doing all sorts of stuff. I would do dumplings with with people and with our elders and all. And I'd be doing dumplings and dough, working dough. That's why I know how to make toyo beans and stuff like that, and paratas. And but I would get home from school and I just go into the fridge, go bundle of this, bundle of that, bundle of that. Okay, turn on the water, put the noodles in, get a pan, some this condiment, that done. Here's a stir fry, put on my noodles, done. There's my noodle. 5 minutes. My mother would joke about the fact that we were always stocked. So if we had a guest, suddenly, a sudden guest, she would need 10 minutes to get dinner together. That's not true. It'd be 10 minutes with 2 helpers, or 20, more closer to 20 minutes. So 20 minutes, because the thing is that once again, in the culture that I was raised, when you are serving guests, you make sure there is an absolute abundance. So we've got 5 people, that's 10 dishes. Make certain there's a lot, that the whole table is covered. I was trained that way to the point where Brandon gives me a hard time. Like, he had a small potluck at work. And he came home and told me it was going to be a small, tiny little potluck, okay? Trying to keep me under control. Tiny little potluck. So this tiny little potluck of 4 people plus people who would wander in and out of the department. As soon as he said people would wander in and out of the department and maybe get some food, I was just like, okay, so count for 20. So he literally had to wheel in everything that was made on a cart, on a wagon, on a little wagon cart. And so people were joking that that he was playing Santa Claus, because it was the Christmas potluck. But I was also raised that when you're going to a potluck, unless you were assigned a dish that you're making and everyone's assigned the dish, always assume that other than you, everyone is going to simply bring store-bought cookies, chips,
soda,
soda,
or
cake. Yeah, or cake or nuts or something, basically snack foods. And he didn't believe me. He was the only one that brought real meals, real food. Everybody else brought nuts, chips, and pretzels. So, I won. But he did have to wheel it in on a wagon.
Never challenge the women in your life, because they know.
I love food. I do. And I manage, so I make the joke that, you know, I might need to work out for my health, but the real reason is that way I can eat, because I eat and I love food. I don't want to be on a diet. That's not who I am. I love food too much to be the person who's like chipmunk, or like, I'm not the lettuce girl. I'm the, you know, you put a plate of something in front of me and I'm like the wolf down everything. I'm not the, I just want 3 slices of lettuce, please, girl. No, I can't do that. I'm an eater. I work out to eat. Some people live to eat. Some people eat to live. I live to eat. Yeah, that's the term. So
you work out to eat. Okay, that works.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, exactly. As much of it as I can turn into muscle as I can possibly do.
Exactly. And the more muscle you put on, the more your body burns in a day. So
exactly, more dense. Yeah, exactly. You know, that's why I can eat 2,200 calories on maintenance.
There you go.
Yeah. I actually do have some definition. So.
Yeah.
Rachel's getting some definition. I could actually, again, like I said, I've seen the change. Mm-hmm. My eyes don't lie. I can tell my viewers your eyes might lie, because I haven't really. I've been maintaining my weight, and although I may have lost a little fat, I think you think the beard I'm growing makes me look thinner. But and if it does, so be it. I'm not going to complain.
Rachel, though, she has lost a lot of. She's shrunk a lot.
Yep.
She has changed her body composition significantly in just the 7 or 8 months that I've known her.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and my strength and balance
and your coordination, yes, and balance.
Yeah, it's like the stability of doing things is so much nicer.
And for our viewers here, I know that a lot of gamers are very sedentary, and one of the things I would definitely recommend, in addition to doing mobility workouts, waking up and doing stretches, doing some cars, stuff like that, I highly recommend start researching into your posture and your range of motion on walking, because a lot of people, as they put on weight, and I will get to that in a second, because that is a very, very, it's a hot topic, and I will explain some things about that. It is good for some people. It is good for some people. It is not good for all people. And I will explain that in just a moment. But I was talking to Rachel, and when she went to, was it Gary Con? She started, North Texas Con.
North Texas.
She started noticing this after training with me for a few months. She started noticing what I was talking about, that as you start putting on weight, or as you become more sedentary, you, for lack of a better term, unlearn how to walk. When you're walking when you're walking in a healthy fashion, you're actually walking with the majority of your body. Your torso moves, your legs move, your hips move, stuff like that. As you get sedentary, as you get slowed down, as you maybe put on some weight, as you become more and more out of shape, more and more people start to basically drag their body forward, more like this, where their hips become stiff. They're not moving their torso, and they're just kind of moving one leg in front of the other. Yes, just the legs. And that's something that I highly encourage you to just evaluate in yourself. Rachel and I have been working on a lot of rehabilitation exercises to change the modality of her walking. And it's something that I highly recommend a lot of people do, because it can do a lot of benefit for you. Simply going out and saying, I take walks. Walks are very variable. Like Eric was saying, when you're walking, Eric and I were saying, when you're walking in one motion versus another plane of motion, it changes on the calorie burn. And if you're and the more muscles you recruit on a specific action, the more calories you naturally burn. Right. So if you're moving in a clean, natural, where you are actually that fluid movement, where you are moving your torso, where you're working your core into walking, and you're working and have that fluidity in your hips, that does a lot to simply increase your natural calorie burn. Now, intermittent fasting. That really depends on a lot of factors. And you will see, going out into, like, I'm in like 15 different body fitness groups and bodybuilder groups. And, people are like, oh, I love intermittent fasting. I hate intermittent fasting. Oh, it works for this person, doesn't work for that person. And that's because there are a lot of factors that I can't speak for you. Some types of intermittent fasting can be very good for certain people, while other styles will be very bad for people. Like, for example, if you restrict yourself to eating at an 8-16, 8-hour window eating, 16-hour fast, or some people do the day on, day off. Based on your body chemistry, based on your medical history, different levels work very differently for different people. And I would also highly, highly warn biological women, not women who identify as women, but biological women, to be very careful when intermittent fasting. The reason being is that more and more studies are coming out talking about the fact that up until the 90s, biological women were not included in a lot of medical studies, including studies on fasting. And what a lot of studies are showing is long-term fasting on women of childbirthing years. If they are on intermittent fasting for long periods, they can lose their cycles. They can shut down certain functions in their bodies and mess up their endocrine and hormonal systems. The more and more studies are talking about how men work on a 24-hour cycle, women work on a 28-day cycle. That's still the science on that is still a little iffy. There's enough proof to show that there is some backing there, but the tweaking on that is a little wonky. But what I would say is be extremely cautious. I can't fast. You may be able to. What I would suggest is make sure that you are journaling your fasting experience. You're journaling how you're feeling, give yourself a fatigue level, make sure that you're still staying hydrated. The other thing is talk to your doctor about what nutrients your body has issues with, because if you're fasting, you're not getting the input of nutrients. And so, for example, if you are short on magnesium, if you are short on potassium, which is a very common thing that people are short on, if you are, these things, if you're not eating it, you're not getting in your body, so you're only going to become more deficient. If you are super healthy, you're getting plenty of the nutrients, you're getting an overload of the nutrients, you're at the half-life of the nutrients in your body is good, then you can be fasting without a problem. But if you're dealing with deficiencies already, you're going to get more deficient. So it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
And I always
There's
caution
a lot of factors to look at.
Yeah.
Yes. And people make it sound like it's so simple. Just starve yourself for a while and you're going to lose weight. Well, yes, but what is going to come along down the road for you, and the idea of health. Yeah. Also, for people who want to lose a ton of weight fast, just like there's no magic pill, there is no miracle that'll do that in a good way. If you do lose weight fast, there are a lot of repercussions that can come from it, internal and external. On the external level, at the easiest way to describe is, all those people with really loose skin, because their bodies are losing weight faster than their bodies can adapt. Good night, Kim. And therefore they have those bags of skin, and there's no way to exercise that off after you've lost the weight. You'll just have that unless you go through cosmetic surgery. So losing 1 to 2 pounds a week is really good for you because your body has time to adapt. So
interesting.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, there you go.
Slow and steady wins the race. Yes.
So Kim, Kim, Alice, would you believe we hit 2 hours?
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well,
I'm just saying. I've done live streams with Bad Mike, but we've gone, holy crap, it means a lot. It means we had a great live audience. We have a great co-host today, so thank you. And I'm not trying to continue. I just want to let you know where we are at. I go as long as my bladder goes. I mean, that's my only limiting factor as an old man at 55 who's always hydrating.
Well, I hope that I've been helpful to your viewers tonight, because
oh my God.
I really want to make sure that people live a very good, positive, and so there you go. See, for you, it worked very well, and that's fantastic.
Wow.
But once again, when you do that, you do need to make sure that you're nutrient fasting and your nutrient levels and such, because if you're dealing with high levels of stress, there are a lot of times that is nutritionally nutrients are a big factor. So magnesium, we were talking about, potassium. I don't know how much you're in the sun. Vitamin D could be an issue for your body. It's funny because there's some studies that talk about how anemia is now more and more misdiagnosed because, or misinterpreted, because people see certain skin symptoms of anemia and think that it's anemia where it's a lack of iron, when in truth, because of the modern American diet and the modern American lifestyle, more and more anemia, misdiagnosed anemia, is actually a deficiency in vitamin D, because we need vitamin D to process iron. Oh my gosh. So suddenly, doesn't matter how much iron I'm intaking if my vitamin D isn't good enough to process that iron.
Right.
If I don't have the dwarves to actually beat that iron into my system, then that iron does nothing standing in the walls. So you need you need the dwarves to mine that iron. Otherwise, that iron does no good.
I like that.
And so, if you are dealing with high levels of stress, definitely make sure that first and foremost, your nutrients are on point. D is not something that is in the standard metabolic panel. It's not in standard blood test. You have to ask your doctor for that. Your magnesium intake is paramount, and that's something that is often overlooked by most medical practitioners. I learned the hard way that I needed to start supplementing carefully my magnesium, and that's helped me a lot in a lot of respects. Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm about to say holy s, but holy crap! This has been not just informative for me, and I'm sure some of the people watching at home could see there were points where I was getting emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows on my face when I get that way. All right, but Alice, I've known you for years. It's always an amazing time when we get to hang out together.
Yes.
But you really were awesome. I am going to throw this out there. No pressure, but I'm sure we'd like to have you back at some time.
Yeah, of course.
And when we do, I will give a few days notice so people who have questions can make sure they're in a live
that they
stream.
could send it to us or just be
either
present.
Way, either be present, because
go look up cars. Go do some kin stretches. Go get moving.
I mean, folks,
cars are awesome.
If you're not doing stuff to improve your health, it's never too late to start. The only time it's too late to start is if you never start. Then it's too late because you never did it.
It's too late when you're in the grave.
There you go.
That's honesty.
And you don't have to make big changes. A lot of people think it's all or nothing. Oh, I have to dump all my junk food out of my house. Oh, I have to go into this massive state of crazy. But little changes add up to big changes. If you do 10 little changes, it becomes one moderate change. 20 little changes makes a big change. Yep. And the other thing is that realize that if you you can't go from being sedentary to suddenly going, oh, I'm going to work out for 2 hours, or I'm going to go and do high intensity interval training or cross train with this elite group right after being sedentary, because that's like people who go and do a marathon without training. And there have been documented medical records of them peeing out blood after. Why? Because their bodies are building up such toxins because their body is unable to handle it because they haven't trained. And so you can end up damaging your body. And so incrementally learn and keep pushing. Keep pushing, but don't overtrain, don't be stupid.
Right.
Which I'm still learning how not to be stupid, as people who know me very well know, because I still push myself way too hard sometimes.
Well, so you're stubborn like a certain woman that I married. So
I'm very stubborn. I'm very stubborn.
So is she.
We joke that we don't have kids because we're kids to each other. So, he treats me like a child and I treat him like a child sometimes, because he's like, Alice, you're canceling with Rachel for the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay.
You're shut down for 2 weeks.
Wow. See, that's the secret of a marriage.
Yeah.
You have to know.
You know when to pull rank.
Yeah. Never pull rank unless you need to pull rank. That's good. God bless them. Seriously, we're gonna have to have you back because this was spot on amazing.
Yes.
Folks, again, thank you to everybody in the live stream. Matt, please avoid letters. Personal joke.
Yeah.
Listen, as I do at the end of all these, we're in the endemic now, so use your common sense. I'm not your father. All right, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Use your common sense. That's as far as I'm going to go. Be safe, be well. God bless each and every one of you. And I'll be back with some random video tomorrow. Next live stream will be Wednesday. I've lost track of who the next special guest is, but we have one on Wednesdays, at least through the first week of September. So we actually have a schedule. I just don't know it. All right, folks. Thanks again.
Is that bad Mike's territory?
Oh, that's bad. My once a week work spouse.
Yeah.
Rach gives me that once a week. She understands. Like, oh, he's gonna be with Mike. All right. Well, that's their
One of my dearest friends is about to meet Mike for the first time this weekend. And when he was trying to figure out who he was meeting and he read the full name, it took me 10 seconds to process because I'm always used to Bad Mike. So his full name threw me off. I'm like, oh.
Battle Lotto. Oh, that's where the Bad Mike comes from.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Again, folks, thank you much. This was an amazing time.
You.